that the government of Nigeria under his leadership will do everything possible to support the NTA2 and others to be proactive enough.
Federal government set to take proactive measures against the menace of Boko Haram in some parts of the country.
You must reinvent yourselves. You must believe in yourselves.
Federal government flags off residential pardon for inmates.
I thank the government very well because they did well for us.
More states benefit from the federal government's conditional cash transfer. Welcome to the news at 9, reaching you live on the network service of the NTA. I am Joseph Johnson in Abuja. The federal government has promised to take more decisive and proactive measures towards ensuring that the Boko Haram menace in parts of the country is totally eliminated for sustainable peace and development. President Muhammadu Buhari gave the assurance during a strategic engagement with the governor of Borno State, Professor Babagana Umar Zulum, on the prevailing security situation following Chadian military operations on the fringes of Lake Chad. State House correspondent at Musambo reports.
Governor Babagana Umar Zulum was in the State House to brief the president on the recent military action against Boko Haram by Chad Republic on the shores of Lake Chad and its implications on Nigeria's national security. Chad was responding to the killing of nearly 100 of its soldiers by the insurgents. President Muhammadu Buhari and Governor Zulum, after critically analyzing the situation, expressed the belief that time has come to once and for all put to an end the senseless acts of terror by Boko Haram and other criminal elements operating in the region.
Honestly speaking, we are apprehensive because of the ongoing operations by the Chadians. Right now, most of the Boko Haram are fleeing the shores of the Lake Chad, the areas of the Chad Republic, and they are now coming to the northern Borno State and then to southern Borno State. And there's need for us to now provide some counter-insurgency attacks.
So what did the president tell you?
This is the right time that the government of Nigeria under his leadership will do everything possible to support the NTA2 and others to be proactive enough to contain the situation, to deal with them decisively with a view to ending the crisis, so that they shouldn't occupy some other areas in the northern states as well as in the Sambisa Reserve.
From the State House at the Musambo, NTA News.
The Republic of Chad has condemned and denounced the dubious videos and images wrongly attributed to President Idris Deby circulating on the social media.
The Embassy of the Republic of Chad has brought to the knowledge of Nigeria of a misleading video and images circulating on the web and in some online platforms, including print media. The Chad Embassy noted that these dubious videos and images attributed to the President of the Republic of Chad, Idris Deby Itno, is dated back to 2015 with completely distorted remarks taken out of context and alleging inaction or non-participation of the Nigerian army in the fight against Boko Haram. The embassy hereby disassociates from such, rejects it, and also condemns it in strong terms, regretting the misinformation which it says only aims at deteriorating the cordial relationship between the two countries, as well as the cooperation established between defense and security forces of both sister and neighboring countries bound by history, geography, culture, and blood. The embassy commends the mutual understanding, regular consultations, and active solidarity that exists between the sister countries and the two leaders. The embassy also pointed out the qualitative development that has occurred in all areas of bilateral cooperation between the two countries, with Nigeria as #1 economic partner, and both nations require further rapprochement to solve security challenges to achieve sustainable development. To this end, therefore, the Chad embassy is counting on the media organizations to consolidate common interests of both countries towards sub-regional and continental integration, pointing to the cooperation established in the framework of the Lake Chad Basin Commission and the common fight carried out together within the multinational joint task force as perfect illustrations. It further stated that both countries cannot be distracted from their common goal of restoring peace, security, and stability in the whole sub-region for a sustainable development mutually profitable to both countries.
Meanwhile, faced with environmental degradation on one hand and insurgency on the other, the Lake Chad region is a shadow of its former glory, leading Nigeria and Chad to re-strategize and fight in insurgents in the region. Correspondent NTA2 Tijani reports.
Understanding that these challenges are the root cause of the cycle of violence and insecurity in the region, this meeting between Ministers of Defense and Chiefs of Defense Staff of both nations is a critical step in resolving the crisis.
I must also add that the meeting holding at this auspicious trying moment of universal lockdown underscores the premium our government places for security of our nation.
Ça, je profite de l'occasion pour remercier le président nigérien et le gouvernement pour l'appui qui ne cesse de donner à notre force commune qui est le CBLT, notre structure, et à tous les pays dans cette lutte contre le Boko Haram.
Recent achievements made by the multinational joint task force comprising Nigeria, Niger and Chad in fighting insecurity warranted an evolution in war tactics against insurgents to attain the common goal of ridding the region of insurgency. NTA2 Tijani, NTA News.
So talking security matters, more than 50 Buffalo four-wheel all-terrain vehicles have been inducted in Abuja by the Nigerian military to increase the mobility and combat efficiency of troops against Boko Haram and ISWAP terrorists in northeastern Nigeria. Again, NTA2 Tijani has more.
Offering a powerful engine and traction common in four-wheel drive, these vehicles are a force multiplier which can be beneficial in all terrains and other difficult driving conditions.
All the formation and units of Nigerian Army across the country have continued to be issued with various types of vehicles for troop mobility, movement of logistics, and combat maneuvers.
The Armed Forces of Nigeria says it is repositioning itself to be a formidable fighting force, and now that the army has inducted these new gun trucks, the battle is being taken to Boko Haram. Meanwhile, the Defense Media Operations says the Nigerian component of the multinational joint task force has continued to neutralize Boko Haram and ISWAP terrorists in the Lake Chad area, recovering various weapons in the process. NTA2 Tijani, NTA News.
COVID-19 now, because as at yesterday 9 p.m. 22 cases of COVID-19 were reported in Nigeria, bringing the total number of confirmed cases to 276. Of the 22 cases, 15 are in Lagos, 4 in the FCT, 2 in Bauchi and 1 in Edo State. 44 patients out of the total number have been discharged and 6 deaths recorded. British Prime Minister Boris Johnson has moved out of intensive care as he continues to recover from COVID-19. Joyce Umetu has an update on the global pandemic.
Today marks 100 days since the first cases of COVID-19 were reported to the World Health Organization. Over 1.5 million people have been infected around the world. A latest tally by Johns Hopkins University collated on Thursday, 6 p.m. local time, reveals that out of the 1,540,085 people who have tested positive, 340,590 have recovered. The tally also shows the country with the most confirmed cases to date. They are US 435,167, Spain 152,446, Italy 139,422, Germany 113,296, France 112,950. Others are China 81,865, Iran 66,220, UK 60,733, Turkey 38,226, and Belgium 24,983. In other news, countries across Europe are cautiously starting to ease their lockdown measures as infection rates slowly decline. Shops will open in Austria and Czech Republic, and schools in Denmark will reopen on April 15. And New Zealand has recorded its lowest number of new coronavirus cases in nearly 3 weeks. Let's take a look at Africa, where the World Bank is projecting that sub-Saharan Africa will go into recession for the first time in a quarter of a century as the COVID-19 pandemic disrupts economies. Figures reported on Thursday at 6 p.m. local time by the WHO African Region Dashboard show that the outbreak on the continent has spread to 52 countries that have cumulatively reported 10,250 confirmed cases and 558 deaths. And that's a global update on COVID-19. We'll bring you more updates as they unfold. I am Joyce Umetu.
Well, let's turn our attention to the National Assembly, where engagement with critical government organizations on the containment of COVID-19 continued with the Presidential Task Force on Control of the Virus. At the meeting, President of the Senate, Ahmad Lawan, stressed the need for a single centralized account for all COVID-19 funds to be managed by a separate body. National Assembly correspondent Ignatius Nkwo reports.
It's been a 3-day painstaking engagement between the two arms of government against the scourge of COVID-19. President of the Senate, Ahmad Lawan, stressed accountability and transparency in the management of all COVID-19 funds. His fear was allayed by the chairman of the Presidential Committee, Boss Mustafa.
Under a certain platform, not every organization is running its own show. There could be duplication, working at cross purposes. At the end of the day, there will certainly not be efficiency. We run a constitutional democracy that provides an essential ingredient called checks and balances. The PTF will not be directly involved in the collection and disbursement of cash donations for COVID-19. The Accountant General of the Federation has already published the account details for collection.
The task force demanded some legislations to contain the virus and put in place preventive measures in the future.
And that some happens to disappear from view, and we are not sure how we are going to be able to actually account for the transmission that goes on.
The legislators observed the need for hazard allowance for frontline health workers and for publication of names, bank verification numbers, and pictures of vulnerable Nigerians who benefited from the palliatives. The Presidential Task Force explained that the Ministry of Foreign Affairs is addressing the plight of Nigerians in China as moves to bring back Nigerians who wish to return from other countries is ongoing. The arrival of the Chinese medical personnel into Nigeria and need to monitor their 14 days quarantine period also came to the fore. Minister of Information and Culture Alhaji Lai Mohammed advised Nigerians to guard against fake news on COVID-19, describing the story of alleged spending of 1 billion naira on SMS by NCDC as one of such unrealistic stories.
This is an opportunity to thank Facebook, because there are numerous people on Facebook is that once you flag that kind of story, Facebook removes it or establish fake news. What the civil director showed me now, that particular one has been stamped fake news.
This is the 5th meeting involving the leadership of the National Assembly and government organizations on the measures to contain the virus. The National Assembly measures NTA News.
Medical protective items delivered to Nigeria by the China Civil Engineering Construction Corporation have been decontaminated in line with international health regulations. A Nigeria Fine First reports that the aircraft and crew members were also disinfected to ensure that the virus is not carried into the country from China.
Items decontaminated include test kits, ventilators, disinfection machine, disposable medical masks, rubber gloves, protective gowns, goggles, infrared thermometers, and face shields. Performed by environmental health officers, the exercise is aimed at protecting Nigeria from possible COVID-19 infection through the items coming from China, which had a high burden of the virus weeks ago.
For now, we can categorically say that this flight has been given the clean bill of health to be able to disembark from Abuja to Lagos. The next stage of the decontamination is we are going to decontaminate the risk area using heavy equipment that we have deployed for this assignment.
On arrival in Lagos, further decontamination will be carried out before the items are cleared for distribution and use. Meanwhile, plans are underway by the Ministry of Environment to decontaminate all the 4 international airports which are gateways into Nigeria. In Abuja, Onengiye Fine Face, NTA News.
Although no case of coronavirus have been recorded in Borno State, the Governor Babagana Umar Zulum has given assurance of preventive measures put in place in the state in the fight against COVID-19.
My Deputy Governor, who is the chairman of the Coronavirus Pandemic Committee, is doing very well. We have stopped the vehicular movement into Maiduguri. That passengers are good, unless if and only if such movements are very necessary. Our indigents coming from abroad, we stop them from coming, and if they must come, I think we are taking them straight to the isolation centers. We have huge number of IDP camps. We have taken some measures, including frequent checkings.
Let's take some messages now. NTA Network News returns shortly. Stay with us.
For now, the best and most efficient way to avoid getting infected is through regular hygienic and sanitary practices, as well as social distancing. As individuals, we remain the greatest weapon to fight this pandemic. By washing our hands regularly with clean water and soap, disinfecting frequently used surfaces and areas, coughing into a tissue or elbow, and strictly adhering to infection prevention control measures in health facilities, we can contain this virus.
Fever Cheetah International Hotel, pleasurable evolution you can't resist. A concept delivered. Cheetah International Hotel brings you face to face with an unimaginable experience you can't erase. You'll like to come again and again. One thing you will hate is to be told the story. Another thing you will love is to be part of the story. You are looking for where your gain equals the cost. Break even with Cheetah International Hotel with our world-class event center that is set to blow your mind away. A world-class arena equipped with top-notch facilities, syndicate bedrooms, hall 1, 2, and 3, underground basement hall, gallery, and many more. Located on plot 224, Solomon Law Way, Utako District, Abuja. For more information on your highly distinguished hotel services, call 081-007-1882 or 081-007-1883. Cheetah International Hotel, a place where your history and future is made.
As the world combats the novel coronavirus, also known as COVID-19, the Nigerian government is committing funds and donations are coming from the private sector to tackle the virus. The emergency response to COVID-19 should not be abused as an opportunity for corruption. Do not embezzle the funds. Do not extort money from patients. Observe due procurement processes. And all citizens must guard against the peddling of false information. Do the right thing. Integrity pays. This message is brought to you by ICPC and NTA.
The coronavirus, also known as COVID-19, is spreading at an alarming rate all over the globe, including Nigeria. With the number of infected persons in Nigeria increasing daily, prevention is better than cure. Coronavirus has no cure. The virus spreads from one person who affects two persons, and by the time the affected person is isolated, the two persons have affected four, and it keeps spreading. You must take preventive measures to save yourself and that of the people around you. Always wash your hands with soap and water. Put distance between yourself and others. Whenever you cough or sneeze, cover your mouth. Clean and disinfect surfaces. Stay at home if you're sick and contact the proper authorities. Together, we can cut down the spread of the coronavirus. This message is brought to you by the Nigerian Television Authority, NTA, Africa's largest TV network. The main way coronavirus spread is when infected people sneeze and cough. Small droplets of fluid expelled by cough or sneezes are laced with viruses looking for new respiratory tracts to infect. When a sick person sneezes around someone who is healthy, the virus can land in the nose, mouth, or even the eyes, causing an infection. Symptoms can include fever, cough, shortness of breath. Symptoms may appear within 2 to 14 days. Seek medical advice if you develop symptoms and have been in close contact with a person known to have COVID-19, or if you live or have recently been in an area with ongoing spread of COVID-19. This message is brought to you by the Nigerian Television Authority, NTA, Africa's largest television network. There is a lot of fake news and report circulating, especially on social media, on the coronavirus. Do not believe or partake in the spread of these fake reports. If it is not on the official website or news from the Nigerian Center for Disease Control, NCDC, disregard such report. Only together can we beat this virus. Only together can we overcome this pandemic. Follow the instructions and guidelines provided to combat this virus. Most importantly, stay at home. Self-isolate, regardless of your status. The virus doesn't move unless we move. Let us work together to better Nigeria. Together, we can do this. This message is brought to you by the Nigerian Television Authority, NTA, Africa's largest television network.
Good to know you're there. You're still watching NTA Network News with me, Joseph Johnson. There is no other time the hope of victory over circumstances of life which Easter brings is more relevant to mankind than now. President Christian Association of Nigeria CAN, Reverend Samson Oyokunle, in his Easter message said this is due to the fact that people are forced to celebrate Easter for the first time in over 100 years in a lockdown. In a message released by Special Assistant to CAN President on Media Communications, Adebayo Oladeji, CAN greatly commends both the federal and state governments for rising up strongly to confront the coronavirus pandemic and urge them not to be deterred in confronting it headlong until COVID-19 is kicked out of the nation completely. CAN encourages government in its determination to touch every pore in the society with relief materials and funds despite lack of enough resources. Christian Association of Nigeria CAN wishes all Nigerians a happy Easter. In the meantime, the Inspector General of Police, Mohammed Adamu, has directed the commissioners of police in states where the social restriction order is still in force to continue with the enforcement of the order, while congratulating Christians as they commemorate the crucifixion, death and resurrection of Jesus Christ. The IGP in a statement calls on religious leaders in Lagos, Ogun and the Federal Capital Territory, as well as other states affected by the restriction order, to continue to cooperate with relevant government agencies and use their leadership positions to encourage worshippers to observe prayers and worship programs in the confines of their homes. He notes that the call has become necessary in order to curtail the spread of COVID-19, which has immensely challenged humanity across the globe. The IGP enjoins Nigerians to see the restrictions in the light of the symbolism of Easter, which connotes sacrifice, tolerance, perseverance, love, and ultimate triumph. 33 inmates have regained their freedom at the Kuje Custodial Center in Abuja as beneficiaries of government's efforts to decongest the custodial centers. Victor Azu reports that 5 ex-convicts, including late Chief Anthony Nahoro and Professor Ambrose Ali, were also granted presidential pardon.
Once jailbirds, now free to pursue new beginnings for the remaining part of their lives. This is the story of 33 inmates of the Kuje Custodial Center, beneficiaries of the presidential amnesty designed to decongest the custodial centers. Some were freed on age grounds, some for health issues, and some were long-time awaiting trial inmates. Others have almost completed their jail terms, while some jailed for minor offenses also regained freedom.
I have been praying to God that God should do something that will make the federal government to remember the inmates, to remember me in prison. And God have done it.
In all, 2,600 inmates are expected to be released across the nation in this phase alone, 70 in one day. As the Chief Judge of the FCT signs their release warrant, the inmates also had the privilege of wise counsel from the dignitaries and some started cash from a philanthropist.
Don't come back. Don't come back. Find a way of a means of living. You must reinvent yourselves. You must believe in yourselves.
I implore you to exhibit greater conduct, to invite the spirit of forgiveness.
Earlier, the Minister of Interior announced posthumous pardon for late elder statesmen.
5 ex-convicts recommended for presidential pardon have been so pardoned by the president. They are late Professor Ambrose Ali and late Chief Anthony Nahoro, ex-Lieutenant Colonel Moses Effiong, Major E.J. Olarewaju, and Ajayi Olusola Babalola.
The congestion of custodial centers is an annual event, but the rampaging COVID-19 has had a say in this one, both in terms of numbers and speed. And as the nation continues to groan under the affliction of the coronavirus, these ones will be thanking God for the intervention of COVID-19 in their matter. From the experts of the FCC,
Quite a profound development there, thanks to COVID-19. Quite an irony, isn't it? 600 bed spaces have been provided by the FCT administration to cater for the COVID-19 patients. Minister of the Federal Capital Territory, Mohammed Bello, disclosed these at the FCT ministerial briefing on COVID-19. Shaibu Onoze Yakubu reports that the administration will soon commence the distribution of the palliative food items to the residents.
FCT Minister Mohammed Musa Bello, while commending relevant stakeholders for their support so far in the fight against the disease, revealed that more bed spaces will soon be ready in different isolation and treatment centers in the territory and will be well equipped for the use of COVID-19 patients.
As part of the effort being made to expand available bed spaces in isolation and treatment centers, we in the FCT administration, based on expert advice from our medical secretariat as well as our other colleagues within the medical field, we have converted the Asoko District Hospital has now been designated as an isolation and treatment center that can cater for up to 100 patients.
FCT Minister of State Ramatu Tijani Aliyu, who chairs the FCT Palliative Committee, disclosed that monitoring teams have been set up to ensure that food items are judiciously distributed.
The government of the Federal Capital Territory is resolute to ensure that the people are served diligently. But I say again, we must be identifying the minimum income earners in some elitist cases.
All the staff of the FCT really remain committed and working extremely hard to prepare for this fight against this monster COVID-19.
Questions and observations were raised on issues on corruption and number of beneficiaries as well as stipend for essential workers, among other challenges. Shaibu Onoze Yakubu, NTA News.
The Minister of Humanitarian Affairs and Disaster Management, Sadia Umar Farouk, has assured registered vulnerable persons in Imo State that no one will be left out in the ongoing payment under the conditional cash transfer program. She made this known while flagging off the disbursement of the sum of 20,000 naira each to 7,296 vulnerable persons in Imo State. Rita Mbagu reports that the payment is part of federal government palliative to cushion the effect of the lockdown put in place to prevent further spread of COVID-19 in the country.
Madam Caroline Ukwama and Roslyn Oba are from Iho in Ikedu local government area of Imo State. They are beneficiaries of the conditional cash transfer. When the directive on payment was given by the president in his broadcast as a means of cushioning the effect of the coronavirus pandemic, little did they know that they are going to be part of the first beneficiaries, hence their excitement.
I thank the government very well because they did well for us. They should recognize what government is doing to them. They should use this money for what it is meant for, obviously to take care of their families.
The minister had earlier paid a courtesy visit to Governor Hope Uzodinma, who noted that the conditional cash transfer will serve as a major boost to his efforts at meeting the needs of the people.
Our concern is that these well-thought-out measures and programs of federal government must be appreciated by the people.
In Owerri, Lutambago, NTA News.
About 5,000 indigent residents of Ekiti State have benefited from the conditional cash transfer of the federal government to alleviate their sufferings during the lockdown to curtail the spread of COVID-19. Yemi Dalmo reports that area of Ado-Ekiti commended the federal government's initiative to provide succor for the less privileged.
The conditional cash transfer program is aimed at reducing poverty and giving the beneficiaries sense of belonging to make them pull through the hardship occasioned by the government lockdown to to curtail the spread of coronavirus in the state. The beneficiaries in Ekiti State, totaling about 5,000, said the stay-at-home order affected them in many ways, but the federal government support came at a time it is highly needed, expressing appreciation to the government for putting smiles on their faces.
At least I didn't have anything before, but I thank God that I can be able to establish business.
It's a government that puts the people in the center of all their plans.
But to continue to talk to our subjects and the way to do among them, this is time for them to come and assist the less privileged.
In Adwekiti, Yemidalimo, NTA News.
And the conditional cash transfer of the federal government has begun, or rather has gone beyond just providing succor to the poor and vulnerable persons in the country. For Asukwa Andem, one of the beneficiaries in Odukbangi local government area of Cross River State, the money has literally resuscitated his ailing mother at this time of lockdown. Umar Basiedet has the report.
Government do something is good because like my mom see, she not well, so for now government help my mom see to wake up now. My mom see feel normal.
Asukwa Andem is one of the 11,995 beneficiaries of the conditional cash transfer in Cross River State. Others too have this to say.
Federal government, thank you. May God bless in Jesus' name.
This money will help me to do any other thing, my family, my business, my children in school. This money can help me to do any other thing in life.
In Cross River State, 235,900,000 naira is to be paid to beneficiaries across the 18 local government areas of the state.
And there's what is called the top-up. Top-up is paid as extra to the vulnerable groups, and these are especially the pregnant women, lactating mothers, and women with children less than 5 years old. And so they are usually paid double. So for this particular set of people, as against 20,000 naira that is paid to the other vulnerable groups and poor families, these people are receiving 40,000 naira as we speak.
They are paying 3 LGAs simultaneously across the state. And as I said, all the 18 LGAs of Cross River State are benefiting from this program.
The payments made to the poor and vulnerable households would also cushion the effect of the COVID-19 lockdown. In Odukbangi local government area of Cross River State, Umar Basiedet, NTA News.
Meanwhile, over 26,000 households across the 11 local government areas of Gombe State are to benefit from the ongoing federal government's conditional cash transfer. Fathia Awal Abba reports that this was made known during cash disbursement to cushion the effect of the COVID-19.
That was the celebration during the disbursement program. Just like Yayale Adamu, a 54-year-old woman who has never received a support of 20,000 naira, said she has already set up a water business, while Amina Dang Azumi could not hide her joy.
I thank God for the gesture. I brought a grinding machine and I am benefiting.
Over 400 million naira is to be disbursed to beneficiaries across the 11 local governments of the month of January to April.
Let us start somewhere for a period of some time before the final flag off.
We want to appreciate His Excellency the President of Nigeria and Alhaji Muhammadu Inuahaya for making sure that this cash are given to the rightful persons.
The program is to be continued in the entire 11 local government areas of the state. In Gombe, Fatia Awal Abba, NTA News.
You're still watching NTA Network News. Let's take a breather here as we join Dotun in Lagos for more reports. Dotun.
Thank you, Joseph. Following the outbreak of coronavirus in Nigeria, another set of 109 nationals from European Union countries are set to be airlifted from the Murtala Mohammed International Airport in Lagos. Ken Igbeluge reports that the returnees are to be taken back to their countries by Danish airline.
At the departure hall of the Murtala Mohammed International Airport, activity was at an all-time low. 4 scheduled flights were cancelled. These passengers were among the lucky ones who were able to secure seats on a chartered Danish airline. The aircraft is expected to airlift them to Oslo, Norway.
Flight arranged by the Norwegian Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and where we work closely with the Nordic countries. So a major number of Nordic citizens, but also a few from various European countries that are going along.
The 109 passengers are nationals from Denmark, Belgium, Netherlands, and the United Kingdom.
Normally I was supposed to leave the 30th of March, so my flight was not going. It was KLM Airlines, so now we want to go home to meet my family.
Long journey, we go to Oslo first with Danish Airways, then we go to Amsterdam, and then from Amsterdam to the UK. So it will be Saturday afternoon before I get home.
I can't even wait to go back to work, and make some money and be able to send it back home as well.
Meanwhile, Air France is expected to evacuate French nationals later this week. In Lagos, Ken Igbeluge, NTA News.
The National Broadcasting Commission, NBC, has joined forces with government, humanitarian bodies and individuals in the fight against the coronavirus pandemic. Adeola Komiakere reports that the commission donated safety kits to staff of Laspotec FM Lagos to help prevent COVID-19.
Since the outbreak of the deadly coronavirus, media organizations, including the Nigerian Television Authority, have been in the forefront of sensitizing Nigerians on the dangers of the virus and the preventive measures to take. To ensure safety of media workers whose services are essential, the Director General of the National Broadcasting Commission has directed that community stations will receive preventive kits to protect persons on duty. Kits were also presented to the management of the Lagos State Polytechnic Radio in Ikorodu. The National Broadcasting team was conducted round the institution's FM station, and they were interviewed live on radio.
We don't have much radio stations or broadcast station here in Ikorodu, and they are not just enlightening the polytechnic community, but the Ikorodu as a community. They are playing that wonderful role. That is why we choose them, because the donation was specific to community broadcast stations.
We have a role and responsibility to play in terms of trying to sensitize our people.
Everybody is involved in this warfare, and so it's a warfare that can only win by information.
Meanwhile, it was observed that the people of Ikorodu, where the radio station is located, are adhering to the stay-at-home order, as the roads were devoid of the usual vehicular traffic, except areas where there was the sale of perishable items. In Lagos, Adeola Komiakere, NTA News.
And that does it from Lagos. Network News continues after this time out.
What we are really cultivating here is a better future for all Nigerian women, and it's not always easy. Panadol Extra relieves headache, backache, joint pain, toothache, and menstrual pain. The pain is worth it.
Wake up, nothing can hold us down.
Breakfast your day, every day.
Nestle, good food, good life.
Nigerians, coronavirus is dangerous. It can kill. When you see this sign, high fever, cough, shortness of breath, drowsiness, pneumonia, don't panic, don't hide, don't embark in self-medication. Promptly visit the nearest medical facility. Report all cases to the nearest hospital. Prevention is key. Avoid contact with infected persons. Avoid crowded areas as much as possible. Wash your hands regularly. Use hand sanitizers. Your life is precious. Stay alive. Live long. Live right. This message is sponsored by the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture and the Nigerian Film Corporation. Nigerian Film Corporation, powering possibility.
James, I don't know. You need to answer your call. This. Hello.
Is this Mr. Peter? I'm calling from the NCDC. Your friend, Mr. James Okri-Kocha, was brought in this morning and tested positive for the coronavirus. He mentioned that he had been in close contact with you.
God forbid bad thing.
I am not saying that you have the virus, but you have spent some time with him over the past 14 days, and it is better if you self-isolate immediately.
I don't know any James at all. Even only James in the Bible that I know as a good Christian.
Sir, he showed us pictures.
Now, wow, if you have come in contact with someone who has tested positive for the coronavirus, self-isolating is key to protecting those around you. Remember, viruses don't move, people do. Stopping the spread is in your hands.
This message is from the Akinfade Foundation in partnership with the National Orientation Agency with support from MacArthur Foundation.
Fourteen new cases of COVID-19 have been reported in Nigeria. 13 are in Lagos and 1 in Delta State. As at 9:30 p.m. 9th April, there are 290 confirmed cases of COVID-19 reported in Nigeria. 51 have been discharged with 7 deaths. Of course, you know that before 9:30 p.m. Tonight, it was 276. But with the 14 new cases, it's now 290 confirmed cases. Reports just reaching us says Bauchi State Governor Bala Mohammed has been discharged from isolation center after he has been confirmed of being negative for coronavirus. Immediately after the governor was discharged, he addressed some of his associates and government functionaries, thanking God and assuring hope to those patients of COVID-19. The oil market in just over 1 month has changed beyond expectation. The supply and demand fundamentals. Secretary General of OPEC, Mohammed Sanusi Barakindo, said is horrifying with the expected excess supply volumes on the market, beyond anything seen before. To stop the industry from further bleeding, Barakindo's call is for urgent action in the interests of all. Will the 9th extraordinary OPEC and non-OPEC ministerial meeting be able to stop the bleeding? Lydia Sampson reports.
The meeting is being held via a web-based seminar in view of developments surrounding COVID-19 pandemic, and secretaries are joining from their respective countries. OPEC Secretary General Mohammed Sanusi Barakindo lamented that the global oil market is already seeing some production shut-ins, companies filing for bankruptcy, and tens of thousands of jobs being lost. Barakindo described the scenario as unprecedented in modern times. The outlook for non-OPEC supply growth in 2020 has also fallen by over 1.5 million barrels per day, although this is nowhere near the drop in oil demand. Due to COVID-19, OPEC Secretary General said oil market is seeing significant less revenue coming into treasuries, which evidently has major consequences, and the limits of the market is being tested on many fronts. The industry, he said, is likely to see further breaches in logistical capacity for ships, pipelines, terminals and processing units, and it it is clear that available storage capacity is quickly filling up. Birkin lamented the grazingly shadow hanging over all, stressing that the market must not allow the shadow to envelope it. He called on oil producers to look at the market outlook and stand shoulder to shoulder to help the vital global industry survive. In Abuja, Lydia Samson, NTA News.
And from here, let's join Mina in Enugu, who is ready with some stories.
Hello, Joseph. Good evening and welcome to Enugu. As part of measures to check the spread of COVID-19 in Enugu State, the state government has begun the fumigation of markets, isolation centers, and other public places within and outside the state capital. Chika Ugu reports. Within and outside the state capital. Chika Ugu reports.
Coronavirus and other diseases, the Enugu state government, among other things, fumigated major facilities and infrastructures within the state. This exercise was performed by men of the Enugu State Fire Service. Taking advantage of the lockdown in the state fire team began the decontamination of various markets, major roads and public places as directed by the state government.
We decided to continue the sanitization of the environment in the nights, and we will go around all the bus stops in the state. Before the reopening of the markets, we will make sure that we fumigate all the markets, all the major markets in the state, and most of these markets we will visit are in the rural areas.
The exercise was taken beyond the state capital to Nsukka local government area and other areas within the state.
Governor, His Excellency Honorable Dr. Ifeanyi Ogwuanyi, he has the poor masses in mind. That is why he has the mind of sending the fire service people down to Nsukka to fumigate Ogige Market.
The exercise aimed at sanitizing the state and making it safe from infections and diseases is expected to be a routine one. In Enugu, Chika Ugu, NTA News.
Following the Imo State government's order on boundary closure and shutdown of business activities as part of measures to control the spread of COVID-19, the Imo State Commissioner of Police, Bolaji Fafowora, and some members of the command have embarked on enforcement exercise to ensure strict compliance to the order. Lorita Arinze Gwim has details.
The Imo State Commissioner of Police, Bolaji Fafowora, and his men were on the major streets of Owerri to enforce compliance to sit-at-home order. Some motorists who were trapped at different roadblocks mounted by the police were requested to provide their means of identification, while other defaulters were warned on the implication of not adhering to the restriction order.
I was trying to find out from them whether they know why they were on the road, because we've given them instructions and we want to make sure that this instruction they understand and they are carrying it out to the letters.
At the boundary between Imo and Rivers States, the Commissioner of Police expressed satisfaction over the total compliance to the boundary closure order. He maintained that the fight against COVID-19 is a collective one, hence the need for Imo people and Nigerians at large to comply with the measures aimed at containing the spread of the dreaded disease.
They should be patient. No tough situation lasts forever. In no distant time, this issue of COVID-19 will be a thing of the past.
The exercise is jointly carried out by the officers of the Imo State Police Command and the military. In Owerri, Lorita Arinze Gwim, NTA News.
And that's a bit from Enugu. It's back to you, Joseph, for a continuation of the news.
Thanks a lot. The Accountant General of the Federation, Ahmed Idris, has confirmed the reactivation of the GIVMACE platform that was interrupted Wednesday after a morning fire that affected the cooling system of the server. He confirmed that the commencement of transactions by ministries, departments and agencies, assuring that no funds belonging to the nation's treasury was affected in the accident. Leah Katunba Batunde has more.
I'm glad to inform you that in less than 24 hours since the incident, we are able to rectify the cooling system, and we test run the system to ensure its workability. And right now, our servers are up and doing.
Accountant General of the Federation, Ahmed Idris, affirming that power has been restored to the server, taking his time to put the platform to test. He also advised all public finance officers to resume necessary transactions. Mr. Idris restated his earlier position on concerns over COVID-19 funds occasioned by the fire outbreak.
No kobo is kept in the treasury. We do the paperwork, and no critical paper, no critical document is missing.
The integrity of the building was a lesson taken by the Office of the Accountant General, which prompted the siting of a fire station on the premises, along with unnecessary architectural and security cautions. In Abuja, Liakatun Babatune, NTA News.
The Ministry of Foreign Affairs says Nigeria's missions in other countries are reaching out to Nigerians in their respective host countries, and in due course, the necessary details provided will enable the federal government to work out the logistics for proper implementation of the initiative to provide necessary airlift assistance to stranded Nigerian nationals abroad who require emergency evacuation. In a statement by spokesperson of the ministry, Ferdinand said the Minister of Foreign Affairs, Geoffrey Yama, noted that medical experts have advised that it is better for individuals to remain where they are, as people traveling from one place to another stand a higher risk of getting infected with COVID-19. The Minister of Foreign Affairs appreciates the sacrifices of the heads of missions and their staff across the world for their sacrifice to work for Nigeria at this challenging time in global history. President Muhammadu Buhari has approved the appointment of a Vice-Chancellor for the newly established University of Agriculture, Zuru Kebbi State, in the person of Professor Musa Isiyaku Ahmed. The Minister of Agriculture and Rural Development, Alhaji Muhammad Sabona Nunu, who disclosed these while conveying his letter of appointment, stated that Professor Ahmed's legacies as the maiden Vice-Chancellor will determine the prominence and pride of place the university will occupy in world universities ranking in the nearest future. Musa Ahmed, until his appointment, was a professor in the Department of Veterinary Parasitology and Entomology at the University of Maiduguri, Borno State. He is a fellow College of Veterinary Surgeons, Nigeria Fellow Institute of Human and Natural Resources, Director International Technology Center, University of Maiduguri, among others. Professor Ahmed, who is married with children, hails from Borno State. Well, let's bring you sports news now.
We begin with tennis, where the organizers of Wimbledon Championships will receive a massive insurance payout of $141 million after the coronavirus pandemic forced the cancellation of this year's tournament for the first time since World War II. The All England club reportedly updated its Wimbledon insurance policy years ago to include the infectious disease clause following the worldwide SARS outbreak in 2002. The pandemic insurance package will allow Wimbledon to recoup at least some of the anticipated losses, although this year's tournament would have generated more than $300 million in revenue. In the meantime, the International Paralympic Committee (IPC) has a cash flow problem, but its president, Andrew Parsons, has ruled out going to the International Olympic Committee for help. Parsons says he is trying to cut 5% from the budget, which was listed at €24.1 million in the IPC's 2018 annual report. The cash shortfall stems from the postponement of Tokyo 2020 Olympic and Paralympic Games until 2021 because of the coronavirus pandemic. And in football, a former president of the Egyptian
President Muhammadu Buhari has commiserated with the family of Nigeria's first female permanent secretary, Francisca Emmanuel, who died at the age of 86. In a statement by Senior Special Assistant to the President on Media and Publicity, Garba Shehu, the President believes that Mrs. Emmanuel's works will continue to be honored in the public service. He prays God Almighty to comfort family, friends and associates of the deceased and grant her soul eternal rest. And that's NTA Network News for tonight. Thank you very much indeed for watching. I'm Joseph Johnson. Good night.